Uh, Pratyush, Pratyush, you can start.
Okay, sir. So, a very happy morning to all. I, Pratyush Rathor, feel honored to welcome you all to today's life enriching webinar on developing the new age workforce for the digital future on behalf of School of Business at UPES Dehradun. The webinar would cover some current issues about developing a workforce for the digital age and the trends influencing the workplace of the future. I sincerely hope that everyone watching this webinar will pick up fresh knowledge on this subject. Now, let me introduce our conference speakers, Mr. Anant Kadiyala. He was Senior Director at Transformation Technologies at Oracle. He is an entrepreneur and an expert on applied digital transformation and innovation in the enterprise. Currently, he is focused on leading a portfolio of digital solutions in the supply chain, manufacturing, urban mobility, retail, in the startup space. Earlier, he built a consulting practice that specialized in analytics, Internet of Things, and platform as service and middleware solutions for the Fortune 500. Our next speaker is Mr. Kamlesh Nagware, Chief Technology Officer at Snapper Future Tech. He is among the top 30 influencers of blockchain in India. He is the co-chairperson of Hyperledger India and a member of the Hyperledger Technical Steering Committee, TSC, which directs the technical direction of the Hyperledger Foundation, which is the Linux Foundation Enterprise Blockchain projects. Our next speaker is Mr. Manoj Nair, the Managing Director of Accenture India. Accenture works on providing clients with cutting-edge technological solutions. Mr. Manoj Nair has a Bachelor of Engineering degree from SGI-SITS in Indore, a Master of Science degree in Technology from Manit in Bhopal, and a postgraduate diploma from NITI in Mumbai. He has worked for multinational professional service company Accenture for the last 16 years. He offers experience working with local and international clients in the CPG, automotive, retail, energy, and utility sectors in North America, Europe, and Latin America. Our next guest is Mr. Suresh Khadakbhavi, Assistant Vice President, Innovation Labs, Bangalore International Airport Limited. At BIAL Lab, Innovation Lab, he led the Innovision and Digital Strategy, managing multiple digital transformation projects from concept advocacy to full-scale rollout. He has pioneered initiatives like DigiYatra, Smart Security, etc. for airports in India, and believes in the immense potential of technology, especially biometrics, self-sovereign identity, SSI, verifiable credentials, blockchain, and the way it changes passenger experience. Let me introduce our moderator, Dr. Akhil Damodran. He is currently working as cluster head, Emergent Cluster Vertical School of Business UPES, with over 12 years of experience in telecom, IT, aviation, and education industry. He is also the founder and CEO of LTDM Smart Contract Venture. He is an advisory board member of Blockchain for Productivity Forum. He is also regional mentor for Change Atal Tinkering Lab Niti Ayog. He is postgraduate in management from DMS IIT Delhi, competition law from National Law University Delhi, and bachelor's in engineering in electronics and instrumentation from RGPV, and PhD from University of Petroleum and Energy Studies. I am hoping the session would be interactive and interesting because all of our panelists for today's topic has a great deal of credibility in the digital industry. I'd like to turn the time over to the moderator without further ado. Dr. Akhil Damodran will serve as the webinar's moderator today. Thank you.
Thanks, Pratyush, for the nice introduction for all of us. Okay, so let me start the premise before we go for this discussion. If you look at past 15, 20 years of time, a lot has changed. I mean, in terms of there was an economic crisis in 2008, which has shaped the world for the next 10 years. Then there was a COVID happened, and it has tectonically shifted the whole conversation across the board. Even if you look at the market, the Sensex, the companies which are valued 20 years back and companies which are most valued today are totally a different cup of tea. Elon Musk is the richest man in the world today. And if you look at the whole market, the market has completely shifted. Every time if there was a disruption, maybe because of nature, maybe because of the business, it has always changed the total ballgame of the business across the world. Now, if you look at the last 10 years, I remember, Kamlesh may agree with me that, blockchain, and Anant also may agree with me, blockchain was forecasted as, will be promising. And by 2025, it will be reaching around, 50, $60 billion market, or maybe there's a promising future that it will be $100 billion market, maybe. Except those people who are frantically following the cryptocurrency. Apart from that, everybody was saying, let us see how it works out to be. Grand Theft Auto, Second Life, these kind of games were only played by children or teenagers who want to have a console or PlayStation. Okay. And today, metaverse is a serious business. And to be very honest to you, 20 years back, not even 20 years back, 10 years back, for a layman, a metaverse is a novel concept. I mean, a concept which can be only put on books or in Hollywood movies. Nobody thought we will be having conversation, we will have a business on a metaverse. And we are not only trying to accept it, we are trying to be ready with it. I mean, that's exactly the way that things have changed in the last 3 or 4 years time. Zoom, in which we are talking right now, used to be a kind of supplementary application in a laptop. Today is an essential system of a laptop, how it works out to be. Most of these conversations which you are having today used to have a conference conversation physically, which is still, I'm not saying still not a good one, but most of the real world conversations are happening today in Zoom or all the multiple platforms which is happening around. So digitalization is real. I mean, we are not here for the discussion of whether it is real or not real, but it is real. It's there. And COVID has really taught us that, we have to have a future ready organization. And to be a future ready organization, I think the biggest bet people are putting on is digitalization. I mean, that's how people are getting into it and everything is moving forward to it. Last 10 years, last 3 years, if you look at the COVID and the post-COVID part, a lot of things have changed. 2016-17, there were hardly 700 startups in India, registered startups in India. Today, there are 70,000 startups recognized in India. I'm not saying this is a reflection of the growth, but at least it is a reflection of the ecosystem we are buzzing around. I mean, the kind of things which are happening around. People are not into having a dream stable job, but people want to get into the innovation, be in startup and other things. Bangalore International Airport, let me talk about that. Airport used to be a real estate infrastructure, which is only job was to make sure that the passenger comes and flows. Today, one of the leading companies in innovation is Bangalore International Airport. I mean, they are doing so much on it. Same goes to Accenture. I mean, and Oracle and all the companies. Kamlesh, I think the startup ecosystem, the whole world is disrupting like anything. So, let me put it straightforward to all of you. It is a good thing to have digitalization, but there's also a kind of unpredictability setting up with it. What is going to happen in the future? What is going to happen? Because everything looks promising, but there are issues which are also happening around. I mean, we don't know what is right and what is wrong, which is the right bet and which is not the right bet. So with this premise, let me put it straightforward to all of you. Let me start with Mr. Anant. What is your view on the post-COVID world? What is your premise on this?
Yeah, that's a great introduction, and thank you. Definitely, a lot has changed post-COVID. But if we look closely, some of the on-ramps for it were set before COVID as well. Even prior to COVID, especially in the enterprise space, there is a lot of discussion around digitalization and digital transformation and such. What COVID has done is, accelerated quite a bit, right? So the general pattern that we have been seeing is a transformation of how businesses are conducted, and also what's enabling this change is several evolving underlying technologies. For example, cloud lowers the cost of agility. I don't need to build entire data centers. I can rent compute, networking, and storage from one of the cloud providers and scale up and scale down as needed. IoT has lowered the cost of monitoring. So it's essentially the instrumentation layer. Machine learning and AI lower the cost of prediction. And now we have algorithms monitoring and either classifying or predicting. There's a whole bunch of use cases there. Technologies like augmented reality and virtual reality are lowering the cost of interaction. For example, at a trade show called Hanover Messe, I featured a solution where you can use augmented reality to repair complex equipment. Right up until then, the right technician had to come, and there's a lot of scope for things going wrong. With augmented reality, that entire world is changed. Right, these are some of the simple practical applications that we're already seeing seeping into the industry. And last but not the least, blockchain lowers the cost of trust, right? So when you take these technologies, or combination of these technologies, the whole is greater than the sum. And that's what we are seeing during COVID and post-COVID, is that you take any kind of product these days, be it a car or a TV, everything is smart and connected. So by virtue of that, what we're seeing is, products are inherently more personalized, more precision driven, and more and that have more real-time characteristics. So that's at an enterprise level. At an individual level, what we are seeing in general in friends and families and colleagues is that there's a search for meaning and purpose more than ever. That's the reason for what we call as the Great Resignation during and post-COVID, and also the uptick in entrepreneurship, both in the US and in India. When we see the statistics and numbers, is because people want to do something that they're more passionate about. We see the rise of passion economy, where people are taking their personal passions and hobbies and translating them into revenue streams for themselves. Right. So these are some of the quick thoughts on what we're seeing in the post-COVID world.
Okay. Thanks, Anand. I think it's a very good, valid point you said, and the great resignation part and the way passion ecosystem is working on. It's a very good part. So let me go to Mr. Suresh on this. Mr. Suresh, I obviously I want your opinion on what the post-COVID world look like, but I also want you to highlight because believe it or not, but the truth is true that the COVID has hit the aviation industry more significantly compared to many others. And the good part is your airport is also one of the inspiration that how you have come out of all those things and still you're the leaders in innovation. So can you highlight some point of it, exactly how what was happening in the COVID time, at least briefly, and then what is the post-COVID scenario? What BIAL is thinking about? What is you thinking about?
Yeah. So I think Anant gave a very good, I would say, backdrop to the whole discussion. And there's something he said, which is blockchain, which is reducing the cost of trust, right? And I speak about the blockchain thing and a connection to the aviation industry now, where we are trying to get identity, travel, your health, all these credentials, through the blockchain, right? And we are using self-sovereign identity, and this is something which we are on the verge of rolling out. We already started testing on that one, and I think in mid of August is when we are planning to roll this out across India. So that is something which obviously came out. But yeah, coming back to COVID and the impact that it had on the travel, transportation, and tourism industry, right? I think we were the ones who were hit maximum. But organizations basically prove their resilience under such circumstances, right? And I think we were already on our path for path of digital transformation, and that helped us a lot. And when post lockdown, when we had to sort of come back to business with various constraints which were already laid out, right? Which is we have to maintain social distancing. There has to be no contact. I mean, passengers were certainly not wanting to touch anything in the airport. So how do you make the processes work, right? So everything again came back to how do we make this happen using technology, and therefore we started to look out for various options that we had, and in a very short span of time, I think also proud to say that we were the first airport to actually start the whole contactless journey, and this was something which was appreciated across the world as well, the way we did it. So I think technology certainly helped us to come back, and also going forward, I think what I feel is that as we speak of digitalization, it is more. I would say that while digitalization is one very important aspect, I think the most important aspect is how digitalization makes life simple and convenient, right? That is, I think, one of the most important aspects. It has to be. I mean, whatever we do has to be customer centric, has to simplify the way we lead our lives, for example, right? I mean, if you take the processes at the airport, right, you got so many different processes. Like at the airport entry, you have a document check which happens, which is trying to check your travel data. You have an identity check that happens, and post pandemic, you also have the need to show that you are double vaccinated. Uh, so, and this continues to happen all the way until boarding. So how do you simplify this whole thing, right? And that is where I think the most important role play of technology comes in, where you make the journey completely seamless, right? And this is something which we are attempting to do with DigiYatra, and you'll be very soon seeing this. Uh, on August 15th is the launch. It's a nationwide launch. For limited airports we'll start, and then we will certainly take it off at a pan-India scale.
Okay,
So,
so you're
so
leading it. That means,
yeah.
sorry, I'm interrupting. You're leading, your airport is leading other airports as well. That means.
So we started this initiative quite some time back in 2017. We did our proof of concept on biometrics, but of course it cannot be driven by one single airport, right? It has to be with consensus, and this is something which we have been able to do with the help of the ministry, which has been really forthcoming, really forward-looking, and thinking in the right direction, and creating this platform where identity management happens at a national level for travel, basically. So we want it to become the travel transportation stack of India, like the UPI payment stack. So this DigiYatra platform or DigiYatra central ecosystem would become the travel stack of India. So basically, if there is a need for identity validation for your travel through the airport, or for any hotel where you need identity validation, all these areas or domains, you would be able to get your identity validated using the DigiYatra central ecosystem. So this is the future plan that we have. Yeah, and it has been a collective, I would say, collaborative effort. We started it, and we are leading it from the forefront, but it is with all the airports coming together, and that's how we have been able to achieve it.
Okay. Great point. Great point. Sorry. So I will come back to you again because there are a lot to discuss on this issue. So again, let me go to Mr. Manoj on this. Okay. So Mr. Manoj, as both Mr. Anant and Suresh has deliberated on the issue that digitalization has forced a lot of innovation practices in the organization. In the sense, there is a change. There is a change, no doubt to that. There is a change, and Accenture in a global part of it is leading player in terms of the technological disruption which is happening around. So, what is your view on the post-COVID world, and what changes happened in the COVID scenario in your organization and your ecosystem in which you are playing in?
Thank you, Akhil. Great question, and it was good to hear from both Anant and Suresh on their thoughts on what is happening. So, what we believe, what has happened in the post-COVID world is we have really created a boundaryless world. So, people have realized that there are no boundaries, there are no geographical boundaries, definitely. There are no technological boundaries, and there are no industry boundaries. So, this pandemic has proved that it can be taken off. Industries can work together, geographies can work together, and the world is one open. And for organizations, if you look at it, it has actually become one market. It's a global market. They can go and sell anywhere. They can manufacture anywhere and sell anywhere. And the technology has really come up. So the adoption of cloud has really helped the in making sure that the boundaryless world becomes a reality, and the organizations are investing a lot in moving into the cloud, moving their applications into the cloud, so that this boundaryless possibility can be made effective for them. Now, this has also turned out possibilities for the people working in those organizations to look at what they need to do to make sure that their organizations are making the most of these boundaryless opportunities. And it goes beyond, and what is realized is as organizations are looking at the world as one market, they're also realizing that the customer is the king. Because from a customer standpoint, the customer has far wider choices than what they had earlier. They know what is happening outside, what is available where, and can they procure. So the biggest challenge would be how do we make sure it becomes one market from a customer standpoint as well? Because the potential of growth for organizations really depends on how those barriers are broken. While technology can help in doing that, are we, there might be government limitations, or there might be geography limitations which we need to take care of. From a people standpoint, working in these organizations, not from a customer standpoint, but as a people standpoint, new careers are evolving for people, because when the cloud investment in cloud increases, what is happening is there's a lot of data moving to the cloud. When there's a lot of data moving to the cloud, data itself becomes a career in itself, and there are so many things that can be done. Data being data, what it is more about applied data. What do you get from the data, and how can you make it an applied digital business for the client? And when we look at applied digital, we need to have the right value from the data coming in at the right time. We talked about technologies where the blockchain, IoT, you have a lot of data coming in at the point of consumption as well. How do we make sure that the data is harnessed very well? So data itself has become a career choice for people. Second is security. Data is there, and because these systems are connected now, it becomes one word. Security has come up as a big focus area, and this is something which organizations need to invest in. But we as consumers also need to invest in, because our data is actually sitting somewhere in the cloud, and there's so much data out there. There are so many companies who have access to the data because of the platforms that we consume on an everyday basis, every hour. And what happens to our data, and how do we get conscious about it? So that itself becomes a career choice for people. And building this together, as Anand talked about the ecosystem, we look at all of these in silo, but none of these can actually operate in silo. All of these need to come together. And what we are realizing is that's the potential for the platform companies and the services company. How do platforms operate interchangeably, interoperability between platforms? And how do the services companies bring all these together? And at the end of the day, make sure that they are applying all this together to create value for the business. Technology investment is one, but while the investments are done, is it really giving the value what is needed? So the focus on making sure that we're getting value from every dollar spent has heightened big time, because companies are struggling. During the pandemic days, many of the companies actually saw the business going down, but they realized that the only way to move up is still continue to invest in these technology capabilities, and then come out from the pandemic. And we have great examples of companies investing during the pandemic and using that as leverage to build their growth going forward. And we are seeing that this is going to only continue. And the fear that this might happen anytime, you got to be future ready. So how are you future ready? So every investment is focused on making sure we are future ready. Pandemic, the peak is probably over, but because we need to be future ready, we see a lot of investments. And those are the opportunities which we should look for our people to target on, and we focus on making sure that skills and capabilities are available for them.
So good point, Mr. Manoj. I think there's a critical point you have said about how the organization has to be future ready. I mean, they have to be more present. To be very precise, say they can't afford any another pandemic, at least in the scale in which it has happened now. So moving forward, let me put it this back to Mr. Kamlesh. Kamlesh, first of all, your organization has been one of the most recognized startups in the Web 3.0 and blockchain space, and congratulations to you, because last 1 year has been really great for your organization, being recognized by STPI and other government startup ecosystem. So I want to get it straight from you that what is your view the last 3 years, the COVID and the post-COVID, from the startup ecosystem? How you feel that these new emerging technologies are evolving it? What is your view on?
Yeah. So I think you are great to hear from Manoj, Suresh, and Anant, their larger experience. So as a startup perspective, so I think we are one of the startup who survived the this COVID wave. So when he started, and even we don't have any customer on that time, and then COVID, and then shut down the office for two years. And now we are even like a kind of break-even point in our revenue generation process. So is a good success, I can say, recognized by many different government bodies, STPI, Ministry of IT. So in the larger ecosystem perspective, in the startup, when I visited recently Digital India Week, is very exciting moment to see, like there are 70,000 plus startups and everyone doing good, and larger support from the ministry and the bureaucrats and ministry to kind of provide the platform and provide the exposure to anybody can grow. So that is happening in last 4 to 5 years. After pandemic, what I think there are larger opportunities and scope and exposure to grow the tier 2 and tier 3 cities. And even that's the motive Digital India team, Ministry of IT talking about, because cities like Bangalore, Pune, Mumbai, already startups and larger ITs there. But even currently we see more than 60% startup coming from tier 2 tier 3 cities. And and I think when this pandemic actually changed the digital workforce, like people is not willing to be stay in bigger cities. Even I know many of my friends who are working in the bigger cities and now shifted to their hometown villages even, because there's a proper connectivity, there's a good internet connectivity, good infrastructure even, there's a 24/7 electricity. So people don't even want come back to again to the cities. So even recently we also planning to go to the complete hybrid model and not forcing anyone to come back to office. And the similar way, like if you see the TCS and the Infosys plans to open the more offices in the tier 2 and tier 3 cities, because now, so if I recall in 10 years before, when I was just started my career in come to Pune, on that time when I going back to my hometown Indore, I need to go to some tourist some kind of uh, some agency to book my tickets. There's no proper kind of facility to book the tickets online. And now everything is online. You for the last 5 years, I think nobody is going to the banks and nobody is going to any agency to book their travel. Completely change this aspect, and now all these things are available to the even rural economies. And in villages have proper connectivity, proper understanding about using all this technology, and that's why people are moving to the tier 2 tier 3 cities, and not tier 3 cities, even very small 10 to 20,000 population kind of villages. Many of my friends already completely settled there in 10 to 20,000 people of villages, and completely working their jobs in IBM and jobs in big cities in Bangalore from there. So in last 3 years, in the that is completely transformed. And coming, I think 5 to 10 years, I think maybe we and the metaverse is going to change everything again, because it's going to give the real experience. Currently, maybe we are using Zoom and other medium to exchange, but later in the metaverse, you can really feel and experience your working experience, uh, and that is going to change the complete. And this will also add the kind of equally development of nations. So villages and the towns, we have the same economy like we have in the cities. And because like suppose if someone working in Bangalore now is residing in any village, he's contribute to the employment there. Maybe he put some second business, maybe he will spend their money, his money to their particular households in the village. It's going to be for the country in the coming 5 to 10 years via this digital transformation and this after COVID impact.
Thanks, Kamlesh. I think there's a very important point that, basically the connectivity has increased a lot. So there's obviously an end-to-end seamless connection going on. So that's the reason you have more hybrid workplace ecosystem coming in. That's a very valid point to it. So let me change gears from here. I mean, all of us have given this answer that, the digital disruption is real. There's a change which is happening. There are a lot of bets in cloud. There is a lot of bet in blockchain. There's a lot of bet in innovation. But again, these are more towards, as an individual, you can look at all those things. But when you're an established organization, I mean, I'm taking this to all of you on board. When you're an established organization, change is slightly difficult. I mean, it's not easy that, for a startup. I mean, Kamlesh, let me put it this way: betting on a particular technology, adopting it, scaling it, is more of a more of a market issue, but not as an organization you may have, because you're just starting up, you have a limited workforce. But when you have an established organization, I mean, it's very difficult to not difficult, I would say it's very challenging to to change to occur in a nanosecond. And the way digitalization is happening, I mean, every 6 months you find a new thing coming up, every 6 months you find a new technology coming up. How things are coping up? I mean, let me put this one to Mr. Anant first, that because you are from the I mean, you have seen America more closely.
Yeah.
So I mean, how the culture and the people and the ecosystem you manage, because that's a very challenging part. I mean, that's the very crucial part for a leader to how to manage that. So please, your opinion, sir.
Yeah, thank you. The three aspects, right? First is people, process, and technology. I think all those three need to go hand in hand for a company to be agile. Today, like Suresh and Manoj pointed out as well, companies don't have a choice other than to be agile because it's one world. Any competition can come from anywhere. Whether you're a large company like Walmart or a small mom and pop store, anybody can put their products online and sell, right? So the key thing to be agile is one, to have structures where you're able to delegate further and further down the organization chain, and to be able to delegate and let those individuals take a well-calculated judgment. What they need is tools. So these digital tools, it could be in terms of an iPad that is able to pull information from multiple backend systems or from the internet, right? Or it could be data that is available in terms of good analytics, right? All these kinds of information at fingertips helps to people to make good decisions at the lower levels of the organization, and also for others to be aware of what was the decision, under what context was it taken, and so on, right? So you need people, process, and technology, and the culture of a mutual trust to be able to do that. One another important aspect that companies need to plan for is resiliency. This is something Manoj and Suresh also have touched upon. Especially in the pandemic, we've seen that with the supply chains, companies had to scramble and quickly find alternate sources of spare parts or raw materials and so on. And then, be nimble and support the business. One good example that I can give is if you look at, the humble restaurant business, right? And in every market, you see restaurants from a local tea stall all the way to a 5-star hotel and big restaurant chains and everywhere in between. The kind of restaurants that have survived the pandemic lockdowns and such are the ones that already had some kind of a digital footprint and had some kind of a capability to take digital orders and then service the customers, right? So you'll see variants of this in different industries and different manifestations, but that's the key. Have people, process, and technology to facilitate that kind of resiliency. So if companies don't have it, that is something they need to gradually build upon, and that's also the other name for what we call as digital transformation.
I mean, that's a great point. That's a great point on myself. So, you have touched upon a very critical point. Which I think all of you may agree on this, that people, process, and technology. These are these three pillars has to be managed well in an organization to handle the disruption which is happening both externally and internally. So let me go to Mr. Suresh on this. Mr. Suresh, before I start out, airports in India is coming under regulated ecosystem. Okay, so I'm not here asking any comment on the regulation here, but the point is it limits in a certain way flexibility. Not maybe I'm not talking from the Bangalore airport perspective, but the nature of an airport perspective, it limits your decisions or your freedom in an ecosystem, because there's a lot of regulation in place, which is justified enough because it's a public utility. But even then, the airports are becoming more innovative. Especially, I'm not only talking about Bangalore airport. At least the last, the major 4 airports in India, everybody is innovating in their own way, and they're developing, and they're collaborating with startups and other companies. Even I think your startup, your collaboration, if I'm not wrong, I'm sorry, but maybe with Accenture, right, in the innovation lab which you started. So a lot of collaboration, acceptance from other industries are also coming up inside Bangalore. How this change is taking place inside the airport ecosystem? That's the very crucial part I want to ask you.
Yeah, so I think it is actually good to have constraints, right? That's when you can really innovate, right? And so innovate and flourish is what I would like to say, and innovation actually pays for itself, right? So for example, if you were to see, if you were to do a particular task in a way, okay, and if you were to make it simpler, right, the change is much more easy for people to adapt to, right? So from a customer centric perspective, if you were to look at these aspects, then digitalization just becomes the tool to make life simple for us, right? It brings in convenience and it makes your life simple. So like Kamlesh was mentioning about the booking of tickets, right? You can book tickets today on your phone, right? You can immediately do any kind of booking. So I think the next level would be what? Next level would be when your phone starts to help you take all those decisions, right? So it knows that, you travel to Indore from Bangalore, and this is the particular flight that you prefer. This is the airline that you prefer. This is the timing that you prefer. And you've created a pattern, for example, or you're given some priorities or constraints. The system automatically helps you do this stuff by itself, right? You don't have to go to the phone, open an app, and do the booking, right? And that's how I think it is going to evolve. And what I feel is that, we as airport operators have been trying to simplify the business itself. And when we do this, obviously it pays for itself, because there is an investment to be made, but there is also a gain that we get. So for example, if our airport is built for, say, 26 million, right? And if we make our processes much more efficient, there is an investment to be made in making the processes efficient. However, due to that efficiency, we are able to sort of, process or, enhance our capacity, right? To process more passengers. And when that happens, obviously the cost to the passenger reduces. So I think that's the key, I would say, mantra for us. And we have been following it to the T, in the sense, all our innovation is focused towards customer convenience and enhancing our efficiencies. And when both these happen, right, we also are able to enhance our revenues, which is able to offset the cost for the passengers. So I think it's a good check. I would say, the checks and balances which are there, I think it is very good to have these kind of checks and balances. It helps you to be really focused in achieving value for money, This is what I would like to say.
Good point, Mr. Suresh. I mean, great point you have highlighted to it. So let me switch gears now to Mr. Manoj on this. Mr. Manoj, obviously the question remains the same, that how the organization is tackling the digital disruption inside. I mean, how you're making sure that the process, the people, and the technology, how they are syncing out. But I want to add one more point to it, which I think you can answer, because Accenture is also, I mean, as a technology consulting global player in it, what is the change in the client's expectation nowadays on a general level? Now, what clients want in today's world?
So the clients always are focused on two things, right? One is how do I improve my top line and how do I improve my bottom line? And when we start from this, it's really about making sure that we focus on the elements which will help an organization achieve both of these, because those are important. And this is how they are measured by their shareholders. So when we look at the top line growth, it's all about, do they have the right products or services? What do they need to do in terms of getting the right products and services in the new world? And when you look at the right products and services, you also need to look at what is the expectation, where are the gaps? Are there expectations from customers, their customers, or are there gaps in the products and services ecosystem which they can aim for? And when they start identifying, okay, these are the products and services that potentially does have the right market for, am I prepared very well to be able to focus on generating those products and services and be able to, create it? It could be a manufacturing or it could be a services in terms of delivery. Am I able to create it with the lowest cost in the most optimum manner in the right place? So that we look at, if for a manufacturing company, it will be looking at starting from the procurement of raw materials and going through the manufacturing process, going through the supply chain and making sure that it gets landed at the customer. And through this entire chain, do I have the right tracking, tracing ability to, flex up or down as needed, and also make sure they are sustainable. Right now, sustainability is something which is driven across the globe, and focus on ESG is high. Throughout this entire value chain, am I making sure that I'm taking care of the environment as needed? How am I perceived in the market? And developing that. And then the third thing for the organization is when they start from the customers, then themselves. The third is their employees. How are they making sure that their employees have the right culture, mindset to be able to do this? Are the employees understanding what does the organization need to do to go forward? What do we need to do from changing the employee mindset if that needs to be done? Because employees always will have a culture which is inbuilt based on their past experience of what they know about the organization. But then the second is, what does the culture need to be? Because there's a realization now with the new digital world, technology is at the core of every industry. And earlier it was an enabler, now it's at the core of what needs to be done. So the culture of the employees need to be that I need to be technology savvy, because without that, I cannot deliver what I need for the organization to grow, to be able to make sure they're able to focus on selling more products or services in the optimal manner. So the companies are focusing on how do they get this right mindset with the employees, what kind of training they need to do. And with the pace at which technology is changing, the challenge is how do we make sure that the employees are up to date in terms of the new technologies that are needed, and how do the culture of learning becomes core at the what an organization does. So to summarize, is really at the core of, what are the organization customers, what can you do to take care of them? How am I internally within the organization? Am I receptive enough for what my clients need? And third is, do I have the right employee mindset to be able to deliver as an organization? This is what we are seeing the clients are challenged with, and this is what we focus on when we work with any client. Okay.
Great point, great point. Before we go to the next part, there's a Q&A folder or button in your portal. So anyone who want to answer any of the question can answer anytime. So just to verify it. Okay, so Mr. Kamlish, let me come to you and switch gears from now. Okay, so I want to ask you a very critical question. I think we both are following blockchain, Web 3.0, crypto for last 3-4 years. Okay, and I think when I had a conference with Mr. Anant previous year, crypto was a sky high. It was breaking the ceilings. Today the market is bleeding like anything. Okay, and same goes to the startup ecosystem. I mean, in the sense, COVID made a lot of unicorns. Today things are in a different shape altogether. Some of them are getting dried up and everything. I mean, how can we, Kamlish, I'm starting as a lead to you first, that how we can assess at least what is right bet as an organization, because everything is an investment for you.
Yeah. So I think this is tricky because I think this comes like how you are believe in your idea and believe in yourself. Because like for example, the already many people who believe the crypto ecosystem and cryptocurrencies, and they invested or they are keep investing, but some also believe that the problem what they are solving, like sustainability, is a great thing, and everybody talking about the sustainability, whether it's a supply chain company, whether it's in plastic recycle or even any cement manufacturer, and technological solution to solve these problems and bring sustainability in the solution is the key for the coming decade at least, to achieve the SDG goals or sustainability targets. But in a startup, it's always kind of the concern about like whether I should stay in this particular tech, particular product, particular stake I'm working, or should I change something? Like, so take example, like when I was part of the startup, there's a cryptocurrency, Ethereum, ICO, everything is booming. But we three founders and I'm the founding member team. One founder always believed we should be in a cryptocurrency, and that founder even now running his own another company, and that company is more relevant than this company. And we stick to the enterprise blockchain and the private blockchain because we believe crypto is just the bubble, or it could be anything. It could be zero, it could be $1 million per Bitcoin. But we believe that technology should solve some real problems. There should be some there's some real assets should be backend of the your solution, or you're solving some real problem. So we stick to the our product in the enterprise space, and still we are not that much success compared to the companies who are working in the cryptocurrency space, like for Polygon, take example, Polygon, and like Fire, for example, recently has become the first kind of first unicorn blockchain in Web3. So that depend on the belief, but still I believe like uh, enterprise blockchain, private blockchain, where the real value is bring to the kind of enterprises and the businesses in terms of solving their trust and transparency issues is going to be huge. And this metaverse and even like NFTs, people talk about the enterprise NFTs, because NFTs of just kind of even like in the last 5 years, I'm in the blockchain from last 5 to 6 years. I've never buy any cryptocurrency yet. So that I believe because there should be some backend, because we suppose we buy some share of a company, we know the statistics behind the company's growth. How about the growth of the any cryptocurrencies? That believe of your idea and your thought perspective to the your idea. There is a main motive I believe to be continue spending and continue growing your idea and your startup.
Thanks, Kamlesh. Thanks. Really good point. I mean, it also showed a lot of emotions of the startup ecosystem, how they're feeling about the crypto and other things which are happening. Thanks so much, Kamlesh. So now
May I
let me
just one quick
yeah,
thing to that.
please play it. This is
So
exactly
great
I want.
points,
Everybody should
Kamlesh.
come out. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll also lean on what Steve Jobs once said in an interview, right? In these kind of changing times, what we should all look for is, what's constant, right? Humans have, our behavior and the way we operate hasn't changed in 500 years or how many ever years, right? And like Manoj pointed, if you look at companies, they look at top line and bottom line. That doesn't change regardless of what companies want to do. And in the meanwhile, a lot of things come and go, and Suresh, Manoj, and I, we live through multiple generations of technologies, right? So when I look at okay, to your question, Akhil, how do I know that this is the right bet, right? The first thing to look at is, okay, if you take any new technology, what are the new mechanisms that it gives us to solve problem X, right? Or deal with the situation X, right? Yes, there is an existing way. Can this technology give us a 10x better way of doing it at a fraction of the cost, right? So that's the first and important criteria. The second important criteria is in terms of the implementation risk. Okay, if you take a block has a certain level of maturity, if you like machine learning, it has a different level of maturity and so on, right? Every few years, the maturity level changes. So for the use case that you're solving, does it have the right level of maturity so that your technology risk is manageable, right? Do you understand the technical risk that you're taking, right? Or the technology debt that we are incurring, right? There's always technology debt in any technical product, right? It's about how you balance it. And the third one is, does it have good on-ramps to the existing world? It shouldn't be a huge effort for a user to take up your new solution. It's the entrepreneur is their responsibility to provide that simple on-ramps, and it should be backward compatible. So when you have this, 10x better, and at a fraction of the cost with good on-ramps and low and a reasonable technology risk, so then you have a good combination. Then you have enough heuristics to say, okay, this is something viable that they can put my bet on.
We have clearly articulated the whole framework, exactly how to bet for a technology. Clearly, that's a really, really awesome point you just said. So let me again reframe the same question for Mr. Manoj. Mr. Manoj, I mean, take it from what Mr. Anant has said. Okay, now the point is, he said, okay, you have to have 10x better growth, no doubt. You should also see how much cost it is optimizing for the client, and what is the use case. I think Kamlesh also was saying the same thing, that what is the real case scenario for it. But don't you think there's an organizational pressure also inbuilt in it? For example, what I'm trying to say is that with the buzz happening around a lot of technologies happening, and there may be a constant pressure in organization as well. Should we test metaverse? Should we test the new blockchain coming in? Or should we test the AR world? Or should we test the VR world? I mean, there's a constant pressure that we should also have our hand on these technologies as well before we miss the bus, right? I mean, so how your organization, because your organization, what I'm saying again and again, is the leading organization in terms of technology consulting, and how they are tackling these pressures. And the same question, how you are trying to be less wrong and more right in terms of betting on the right technology.
Interesting question. Now I look back at how we are getting it right? So when we look back, what we have been doing as Accenture, we launch what we call it Tech Vision every year, and the Tech Vision is crafted by deep set of industry experts and technology experts, for people who are working with our clients, and they all come together and look at what is happening in each industry, and we predict the technology trends for the future. And it is published by our chief technology officer globally. And those technology trends are where we see the industry is going to be in 5 to 10 years from now. It is fully future oriented. So the likes of digital and what we are seeing with cloud, it was part of our technology vision 5 to 7 years back. So it was already mentioned that these are the technologies which will start building up, and we are already seeing that. So tech vision is where our thought leadership is, and that keeps us honest in terms of where our investment should be, where our focus should be. So while we do that, we make sure that, because those are new technologies, the adoption is going to be very slow. And based on what Mr. Anant said in terms of rating the technologies, the adoption can increase depending on where it is. But then because we are supporting all the clients across the globe, most of the clients across the globe, we need to have capabilities in each of them. So we kind of start investing in those technologies right early on, and give those opportunities to our employees as well to try and experiment there. Then the key, what is, there was a question in the chat as well as to what is the one soft skill that I should need, right? So the one soft skill that we always tell employees is need to have the ability to learn, unlearn, and then learn. because that is the pace at which technologies are changing. So are we able to learn quickly? And if it is not working well, then unlearn and quickly move on to the next one. So how do we continuously do that? This is regardless of which technology you're working for. And as we move, the companies have their own pace at which they adopt the technologies and move on. So you need to have the talent at scale, capabilities at scale where the adoption is increasing. So how do we make use of our global presence and power to scale up where it is needed, where we see the adoption increasing? Right now, like metaverse is coming in, we are building in a lot of capabilities on how does business gets done in the metaverse. How is the employee experience going to look like in the metaverse, especially as we are working in this new world? How does it look like? So the focus on getting that right. So a lot of people will try and learn it, and they might learn parts of it, and things that they don't work, drop it and move on. So building that culture within an organization and experiment with the clients as well. So part of the solution is, I don't think anybody has the right answers, and not all answers are right. But we need to work together, collaborate together, and arrive at the right answers. And it is important to co-create the right solution by working together. And this is true in terms of technology adoption as well. So these are the elements that we actually do to make sure that we are ahead in the game and we are able to create the talent and capability that we need to be able to support our clients.
Great point, Mr. Manoj. So, I mean, you said very rightly that we have to arrive at the right solution. I mean, there's a collaboration. You have emphasized on collaboration. How it's a collaborative thinking, which is more important in terms of deciding on what is the right use case for a technology and how this is going to be, which includes your client, your people, and you all together. So let me go to Mr. Suresh on this. That obviously you have you're heading the innovation lab. Okay, now my question, the same thing, rephrased manner, that how you as an aviation industry decide that this is the right path for us, in the sense the technology you're adopting, the partner you're taking, and how you're managing the workforce on it. Exactly. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think most importantly, like I think has been said by most of the panelists here, what is the problem that we are trying to solve here, right? I think that is the most important thing. What is the real world problem that you want to solve? And then coming back to what I have been saying is human-centered, meaning that, how do we make, I mean, whatever technology or digitalization that we are doing, the tools that we use, is it trying to bring in convenience to my customer? Is it trying to bring in simplicity in a process? Is it trying to make it much more efficient, right? And in doing all that, is it enhancing the experience of my customer, right? All these aspects are the things that we focus on. And we do design thinking workshops. So when we have a problem that comes up, we conduct these design thinking workshops to ensure that we get to an outcome which is something which everybody wants, rather than somebody just saying that this is the technology that will work well, or this is the process that will work well, right? Unless and until you have the buy-in from the various stakeholders, the users, it won't work. So I think our approach has always been that. And I'll go back to the Digiyatra thing itself, right? So you just think about it, how convenient and how simple it is. So for example, today's process of showing multiple documents at multiple checkpoints, interacting with different people, answering their questions, etc., right, is the process that is there today. Now, vis-a-vis what we are trying to propose in Digiyatra is, you don't need to do anything. When you book your travel, all the necessary documents that are required are shared to all relevant stakeholders. They can do all their checks in advance. And when you come to the airport, your face is your single token. You just walk through every touch point. Nobody asks you nothing. They know who you are. They know your identity, in the sense they have validated your identity. They know which flight you are on. And you go through the whole process. There is a lot of heavy lifting that happens at the back end. But for you as a passenger, it's a simple walk in the park experience, right? I mean, this walk in the park experience, you tell me, I mean, it's good enough for techie, okay? It's good enough for a lay person. It's good enough for a senior citizen. It's easy for kids, right? And that's what I think our whole focus has been for innovation and digital transformation journey. So it's been completely focused on human experience or human-centered design.
Great point. Great point. So I think one thing is clear for all of you. What you said is that the first of all, what normal human basic experience has never changed. So are we able to address that? What is a human experience is, and how these technologies are trying to try to solve the real world problem, and how it is making your life convenient and simple. That's exactly what the main premise of all these things is. So I have one point. Now this is common to you because we are coming to the concluding questions of our webinar. That is what the future ready workforce looks like. So before I get into the future ready workforce, I want to ask you, because you people are hiring, right? You people are hiring in different domains and different things. What is your take of the academic situation right now? What do you feel? Because the problem is, as an academic, let me add to this point. What I'm trying to say is that technology is changing fast. Every 6 months, we are hearing something new is coming out. The question which is relevant to you is also relevant for us in the sense, which is right bet. Because and for us it's much more tough, because by the time we are creating a new course and we see that something new has come out, and for us creating a new course or new paradigm shift is not that fast as in an industry. I'm not talking about only India. Across the world, the academics is not that fast. I mean, it has to develop the curriculum, etc. And from one industry meeting to another industry meeting, the input changes, the output also changes, and the customer experience and the customer expectation changes. So I mean, there's always a confusion in terms of the academic ecosystem and the student ecosystem. What is the right bet for them? That's a sort of more important point. So before we go to the point what the student should do, let me ask you, what you feel, what is the gap between industry and academia going on right now? What is your view on it? Yeah. So let me start with Anant first.
Yeah. So if you look at knowledge itself, right, it's a semantic tree, right? So there is core concepts, sub-concepts and so on, right? So sometimes what happens is there's a lot of noise and cacophony around, Java is cool, Python is cool, Solidity is cool, and so on. So we get caught up in those and not quite okay, you can learn a new language or technology, but if you don't understand the underlying computer science concepts, then the career is not going to go very far, right? That person will be relevant as long as the technology is relevant, and after that, the change becomes very difficult. So for youngsters, my humble advice is, focus on building that strength in that semantic tree of knowledge, and understand the foundational concepts well, so that whatever new technology comes up, then the change and adapting to the change will be much more easy. Even when we hire today or in the past as well, right? One of the core things that I look for is, okay, is this person, do they bring the right raw material, right? And after that, if they have the right raw material, they'll adapt, then inherently smart, if they're hardworking, they'll pick up from there. But if they don't have the foundation, then no matter how much our training or how much our effort, they get, being good at the job ends up being difficult for everybody, for them to survive, and also, to support them in the organization and give them a viable growth path.
Great point, Mr. Anand. And I would say that you all the speakers here, you people also are open to give feedback on faculty as well. There is no diplomaticity required. You can also say how to prepare the future ready faculty as well. I mean, see, on a serious point, it's a mutual symbiotic relationship. To have a future ready student, you need to have a future ready faculty as well. So, I mean, we are open to feedback for both. Okay. So let me just shift gear to Mr. Suresh on this. So, Suresh, I mean, you're hiring, your airport is hiring even from our university and others as well for last 10 15 years, and you have seen the changes in terms of the students in the kind of students which are coming up, what kind of training they are required to have, and what you may have certain expectation already that certain things they should have before they come to these kind of sector or scenarios. So now after post-COVID worlds you have seen very well, what is your intuition and what is your perception on what the future, what the academic should be to make sure they are ready for the industry?
So I think from the university or the college, I think fundamentally you are like bringing in the brilliant basics or the foundational layer, right? I think that is something which is coming from the universities, the colleges. But I think for us or for any other industry, right? I think most importantly, what I feel is the way we collaborate and work with each other. That actually defines the outcome. Um, and it's no more just about the skill sets that you have. It's about, how do you get work done with people, right? I think that is the most important thing, and that's the one thing which perhaps is not taught in any university, not to the extent that it needs to be, because that is what defines the outcomes. You may have the best of the tech folks in a team, and they will deliver the worst of the outcomes if they don't work well together. So I think this is one soft skill which I feel is the most important one, and I've seen many projects like fail just because the lack of camaraderie between the team, right? I feel that is one most important thing which perhaps even the colleges or the universities should focus on. But yes, for us, I think today, and for everyone again, today I think most importantly, the fact that any new skill is very easy to acquire. I think if you are inclined to do it or achieve it, I think you would go ahead. There are multiple MOOC platforms available. You would be able to acquire any new skill. So I think from that perspective, I'm not really concerned. But this is the most important thing, which is how do you work, collaborate, network with others and get work done. I think that's the most important for me.
I think very crucial, critical point. And as an academician, I really say that, yeah, this is missing from the curriculum, from most of the university part of it. But the good point is they are seriously now know that this is something which is missing out and needs to be done. Okay, so let me go to Mr. Manoj on this. I mean, Mr. Manoj, you are also campus hiring for last, I think, 15 years. You have seen Accenture hiring from different colleges, engineering, management, and you have seen across many. I mean, you have seen India and America both on this perspective. So what is your view for the next 4 or 5 years? What academic should be so that they are able to make a future ready workforce?
Thank you again. So when we look at what the talent should focus on and what the talent creators should focus on, you basically, there are 4 things which I would state. One is agility. We do hire talent, be it technology or consulting. It could be demand in various, depending on what they have learned. It could be different technologies, different skills and all. But the core at which will create success for an organization is to have employees with these 4 things, right? One is having agility. When I say agility, are they agile enough to move from one problem to the other? And a problem, it's not that you solve it entirely 100% because business priorities might change. And are they able to move from one to the other? And agility is key. It could be one skill to another skill, or it could be from one technology to another technology, or it could be from one problem to another problem, right? The second is adaptability. We have to understand that the business requirements change very frequently. The customers, what they demand keeps on changing. We need to be open to adapt to what the changing requirements are. It is not that we know this is what is needed and we work towards it. As we work towards that goal, we invest a lot in our doing agile development, creating solutions which can go faster to the client. But at the end of the day, the customers themselves are also exploring and their requirement might change. So we need to be able to adapt to what they are requiring at any point of time. Customer is king. We got to understand how that is being done. The third is, why are they asking it? The value, do we know the end outcome? We need to be looking at the outcome. As I always say, the use of technology is only the means to an end, but what is the end? The end is what the outcome you need to achieve, to what value need to be created. So the end goal is very important. Where do I want to get to? And keeping that in mind, if you are creating a technology solution, what does the technology solution aim to achieve? Is it going to drive more sales for the client? Is it going to make their processes more efficient? Or is it a new functionality which they want to experiment? And what would success look like for them? So understanding what success looks like at the end of it is very important. And that should probably be the first question that we ask before we start working on anything, right? And the last but not the least, as Mr. Suresh said, is teamwork. We succeed as a team, but we fail as a team. There might be individual members who might do well, but we need to understand that we have to collectively deliver what we are committing to. And teamwork is very important. So collaboration and teamwork. And how do we make sure that we are using the best, the strongest capabilities of each individual in the team to get to the right outcome? And that is what success, success would mean. And if they get to the right outcome, the team succeeds together, and the success will be enjoyed by each one of them. And there's nothing like succeeding as one team. So these are 4 elements which our people should definitely focus on, regardless of which industry or which technology or what skills they focus on.
And heroism is not scalable. It can work for 1 or 2 people, but then everybody cannot be a hero. So even though a project may be successful because of 1 or 2 people's valiant success, but that's not scalable. So to Manoj's point, right, building that core baseline is extremely important. And these skills are not taught in schools, and it will be nice if schools can teach them so that when people come into the workforce, they're more ready.
True, Mr. Anant. And I think for that, the faculty also needs to be trained now to make sure they also understand these fundamentals well. I mean, let me go to Kamlesh. Kamlesh, see, you are hiring in the startup system right now. Okay, so obviously the more important is the skill which you might be focusing on, but you also might be facing the challenges looking at the newcomers who are coming in terms of what even Manoj has said in terms of team playership, etc., etc. So, as what is your view that this some skills or some areas which academics should work on to make sure that when the student comes in the industry, they are at least much more prepared than others?
Yeah. So what Anant mentioned about like foundational and basic concept, I think that is very important, because like suppose learning and working on programming language is simply like you knowing a language, and I think language can be learned in just 10 to 15 days. But understanding the fundamental of computer science with the data structure, algorithms, and how the computer programming works, that is more important than working on a specific programming. So this is one thing. Second thing about the analyzing and problem solving skill, because if you want to be working in a organization where you want to grow, so you can't be just follower, you need to lead the way. So for example, if you don't have a skill to analyze and giving the solution to the problem, then maybe just following the instruction of your manager or your lead, you are not putting your effort. So I think academia should focus on these 2 things. One is about kind of focusing on the basic fundamentals of the programming, computer science, or what are the stream they are teaching. Another kind of let student innovate and think about more widely, rather than just kind of giving a spin footing kind of thing to them that I can just solve this problem and write the answer, instead of giving some kind of innovation and thinking around it. And academia and industry come together and create some innovative models on innovative. I see now even every tier 2 tier city also having some kind of innovation lab from the AWS, Oracle I see, SAP I see. I think even we are working with a couple of universities in India to set up the blockchain COE. So when you people let students innovate and think about, or maybe you can start creating some kind of startup ecosystem in the colleges even itself, where student can learn, innovate, and then even they could be the good candidate to work in the enterprises, in the industry.
True, Kamlesh. I think the startup ecosystem has become a very critical part for the university ecosystem. We also have it now, and I think most of the universities are now having their own startup ecosystem. But I think there are a long way to go, because ecosystem is one thing and flourishing the ecosystem is another thing. So I mean, there's a long way to go, and I think industry needs to. I mean, I think one more factor which I also want to add to all of you is, which as a moderator, not as a moderator, but as an academician, that apart from the skills which you have all said, we need more and more industry participation in academia as well. I mean, in the sense, because the feed has to come from the industry, that what is happening, because and that comes by joining hands, as a colleague or a partner in the same journey. So that is also one of the key area by which we can make sure that the next 4 or 5 years looks much more future proof. Okay, so let me have a closing question to all of you, and this question is very simple. What the title of the webinar is, because we have touched upon post-COVID, we have touched upon the structure of an organization, how the change is happening is, what is the expectation of the industry, what is the right bet, okay, and what is lacking in academia. So obviously it boils down to the fifth question, that is, what are the skill set or the factors which you feel is required for the new age workforce for the digital tomorrow? So let me start with Mr. Anant to have a closing remark on this. Yeah.
Yeah. In my book, technology skills can be picked up fairly easily. But what's harder to pick up is the soft skills, right? Good writing skills are extremely important these days. Also good communication skills in general. Then things like conflict resolution, teamwork, emotional intelligence. All of these skills are what we use every single day. However, none of these actually taught in school or colleges, right? More than calculus and physics, these are the skills that we do every single day, but the focus is on physics and calculus in every school and college, right? So these kind of soft skills are important. And like Manoj said earlier, unlearning and learning and relearning is also a very essential skill. So I would focus on at least a few classes as part of, let's say, MBA curriculum or something that takes students to these. In fact, at Harvard, late Professor Clayton Christensen used to have a class called How Not to Go to Jail. Because when he looked at the statistics, he saw a lot of white-collar crimes coming from people who have graduated from these prestigious institutions. They're not necessarily bad people, but when pressure got to them, they took step 1, step 2, step 3 steps in the wrong direction, and next thing you know, they're on the illegal side, right? They didn't start out like that. That was not their intent. So how do you prevent people, right? Ethics coaching and making them aware of these things. I think those are very important. And the more technology centric that we go, humanities is also very important. In our hubbub to learn, keep up with the new technologies, I think we forget about humanities, but humanities is what makes us as a human race better people. So, and there's a lot of actually intersection of tech and humanities, and as a product manager, I can say that we rely a lot of those soft aspects that we bleed into the product to make better UX and better experiences and better value propositions for the user.
Thanks, Anand. Thanks, Anand. Great point. How to not to go to jail. So very good point to say. Yeah. So let me go to Mr. Suresh on this. That what is the new age workforce? What are the factors required for the new age workforce?
I think so. Technical skills, I think, is something which perhaps we don't really need to bother about because it's there and multiple opportunities for you to actually gain these technical skills. But I think the focus has to be perhaps on design thinking and human-centered design. This is something which I feel will work towards making anything that you do successful, right? If it is trying to solve that human problem, and if it is addressing the human need in a proper way, then I think it works well, and it would work well.
Fair enough point, Mr. Suresh. So, Mr. Manoj, on your closing remark on the future ready workforce.
Yep. So let me not restate what Mr. Anand and Mr. Suresh were talking about. Very relevant, and that's what I'm pretty sure a new age workforce is looking at. I would just say two things. One is focus on building your brand. What do you want to be known as? So as you go through this learning process, and your brand can change. It's not that you probably create a brand target for yourself and pursue that for the entire career. What is your brand? Do you have a plan for yourself? So it is very important for you to figure out what do you want to be known for and how do I get there? And when you create your brand, also put a vision for yourself. Where do you want to be in 5 years from now? Technology is here to stay. Digital world is here to stay. It will continue, changes will continue to happen. But through these changes, we still need to create our brand and continue to learn as we move on. So what is my brand? Where do I want to be 2 years from now, 5 years from now? And what do I need to get to achieve there? And if you have questions, there are people who will definitely come and help you, right? That's one. Second is, as you focus on, focusing on what you want to build your career on, pick up some choices of industries that you want to work on, because the industry expertise in terms of what is the business looking for, what are the things that are happening in that particular industry. Pick your top 3 or 5 areas that you think are areas of interest. It could be high tech, it could be travel, it could be consumer goods, it could be retail, or it could be natural resources. So as you look at it, also start looking at how is sustainability playing a play there. There's a lot of focus going to be on investment in sustainability in everything that we do. So it's going to be a key focus of whichever industry you pick up. Make sure you are analyzing what are the challenges in that industry, mostly from a sustainability standpoint, and what are the solutions coming there. I believe a lot of investment is going to happen in that area, and it's going to be a big career move for a lot of us in the near future because the investments are going to be in that space. So if you want to do foundational learning in that space, it will prepare you for the future tomorrow, because organizations are looking for this talent. And if you invest the time that you have in the academia to do that, you'll be better prepared to help the organization, whichever organization you work for, or maybe it could be the organization you create for yourself as a startup.
Great point, Mr. Manoj. I think one place so great, creating your own brand is very, very crucial nowadays. So with creating your brand, let me extend this point to Mr. Kamlesh. So Kamlesh, what is your view for the next 3-4 years, and what the future ready workforce looks like?
So I think here Anant and Manoj already mentioned, like, technology can be learned and unlearned at any time, because that is widely resources available and lots of opportunities available. But like in the hybrid work culture or digital tomorrow, like how you can balance your work life, that is I think more critical. So people should learn like how they can maintain their work life balance working in this digital world tomorrow. This is one thing. Another, like kind of this emotional intelligence, your motivation, or what you want to achieve. Like suppose talk about the building a brand and vision. I think that is more critical. Like, and another thing, not just working on tech or something, but the techno functional of the any domain is very important, where you can understand the tech and understand the domain and can apply your intelligence to build something. I think that is more important than having a specific the tech or that kind of knowledge. That is my take.
Good point, Kamlesh. So with this, the whole panel discussion, if I look at, we have broadly crossed all the points for the students, that what the post-COVID world looks like, what are the organization is up to, and how the technologies are being analyzed and the bets have been analyzed, and what are where academy and industry is, and lastly that what the future workforce looks like. So I'm so happy to say that the whole point, if you look at, there are a lot of inputs which have come up in terms of building your brand, being a team player, conflict management, and understanding each back to basics. I mean, how exactly to make sure that you should know the functions very well. And some of you have also made a point that design thinking is a very crucial point in terms of now for the student as well as for anyone to make sure that they survive in this particular industry. Apart from that, one thing very common which comes out of all of your viewpoint is that technology digitalization is here to stay. No matter what you say, we are not discussing about whether what is true, what is not true. It is here to stay. We have to prepare for it, and it is impacting each and every industry. We are not sitting in an island. Each and every industry, it is impacting it. And somehow collaboration became a very important point. I mean, be it industry or academia, the collaboration has become a very important point, that once so somebody's input becomes the output for the other person, and there's a symbiotic relation in both ways. So let me close this webinar. First of all, great thank you for all of you to be here, Mr. Anant, Mr. Suresh, Mr. Manoj, and Mr. Kamlesh. It's a really honor to have a discussion with all of you. And not only us, I mean, I've obviously, as an academician, we have learned a lot of things, but I hope at least you, between all of you, you also had some points to take home too, between all of your discussions, which is very crucial. And I think we have to continue this conversation. I mean, this is not a stopping of conversation. This is not a the answer for all the things is happening, but it's the start of a conversation. I was the very right start of a conversation, and I think we had to continue this conversation to move on again. So to all the audience, I think it was a right conversation. I hope you all have who are seeing it in a buffer happening live stream somewhere else. So all of you have learned a lot of things. Any question, anytime, you can write in the Q&A, and some of you might have written it. I think some of your speakers have answered the questions in the Q&A session. If you have any other questions, anything, you can put up in LinkedIn, or you can write a mail to me, or all the speakers. They're all welcome to answer your questions, and we will come back to another panel discussion very soon. And I think there will be a lot of excitements which are going to come up now. So I'm handing over to Pratyush. Thank you to all speakers again for making a great morning for us. Thank you. Pratyush, over to you.
Great. Thank you all very much. I'd like to let you all know that after the session is done, the webinar from today will be accessible on YouTube. I also want to thank everyone who came today to participate in this enlightening discussion about developing the workforce of the future through digital technology. Once again, thank you, and we'll see you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all of you. Thank you all of you. So we can all log out now. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.